Throughout history, epidemics have been responsible for hundreds of thousands of lives lost. The reason epidemics have claimed so many lives is that they are usually highly communicable diseases which reach large populations in very short times. The number of cases of the disease quickly exceeds what would normally be expected within the population. These diseases could be viral, bacterial, or other health events, like obesity. Some epidemics have been so great that they left a permanent impact on the population at the time. Welcome to World Top Record Channel. Today, we're going to introduce you the top 10 deadliest epidemics in history of mankind. Before we begin, if you like the video, please be sure to subscribe to our channel, and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. The progress of science and medicine after the 19th century has eradicated many diseases either via vaccination or development of effective treatments. Unfortunately, many of the deadliest diseases in history are still claiming thousands of lives, mostly in the developing countries. At the moment of writing, medicine still does not have a cure for viral diseases, while the industrialized countries are also facing a problem with antibiotic resistance as well as the risk of tropical illnesses spreading to temperate areas as a result of climate change. Scientists and medical researchers have for years differed over the exact definition of a pandemic. Is it a pandemic, or an epidemic? But one thing everyone agrees on is that the word describes the widespread occurrence of disease, in excess of what might normally be expected in a geographical region. Cholera, bubonic plague, smallpox, and influenza are some of the most brutal killers in human history. And outbreaks of these diseases across international borders are properly defined as pandemic, especially smallpox, which throughout history has killed between 300 to 500 million people in its 12,000-year existence. Here are the top 10 deadliest epidemics in history. Number 10. Polio. This disease is suspected to have been around for thousands of years. It usually spreads through contaminated food and water, and targets the human nervous system, which causes symptoms that usually affect the legs and lead to paralysis. In the United States, outbreaks peaked in 1952, when 57,628 cases were reported throughout the nation. Though there is no cure for this disease, a vaccine was developed in the 1950s that has proved effective for decades. Since this is a disease only carried by humans, widespread vaccinations are expected to remove any traces of the disease in future generations. Number 9. Epidemic Typhus/camp fever. Caused by tiny microbes carried by bodily lice, this devastating disease spread easily in close, cramped quarters and poverty-stricken cities dating back to the 1600s. Symptoms start out with a headache, nausea, and fever, but when left untreated, lead to heat exhaustion, effects on blood circulation, and other complications leading up to organ failure. This epidemic spread throughout Europe during the 30 Years' War in the 1600s and claimed over 10 million lives, but it regained strength and caused several million deaths in Russia, Poland and Romania during World War I. Number 8. AIDS. The HIV/AIDS epidemic began in 1960 and continued to present day, although the scariest moments happened during the 1980s when the world became informed of its existence. So far, this virus has caused the death of 39 million people. By the 1980s, HIV was believed to infect somebody on every continent, and in the US, the gay population was hit the hardest. Rare lung infections, rapidly advancing cancers, and unexplained immune deficiencies were rampant among gay men, and at the time, doctors believed it was caused by same-sex activity. A large number of Haitians were also carriers of the virus, which were not named until 1982. Cases were identified in Europe and Africa. In 1983, it was discovered that transmission occurred via heterosexual activities as well. Medicine for treatment was not available until 1987. Today, there are about 37 million people living with HIV. For those individuals with access to antiretroviral medicines, life expectancy has been extended. Currently, this virus is particularly aggressive in sub-Saharan Africa, where at least 68% of all global HIV/AIDS infections are found. The reasons for this are many but stem from poor economic conditions and little to no sex education. Number 7. Malaria. This mosquito-borne illness is one of the longest surviving threats to our livelihood, as records of the disease go back nearly 4,000 years, and cases are still being recorded today. This is especially true in areas like sub-Saharan Africa, where between 350 to 500 million cases of malaria are diagnosed each year, though only a small percentage of them lead to death today. The largest malaria epidemic spread throughout many different countries in World War I and World War II, killing over 100,000 American soldiers alone. Number 6. Cholera. This disease was common in India for centuries and moved on to the rest of the world in the 19th century. Most often spread through contaminated water and food, cholera causes flu-like symptoms like vomiting, diarrhea, cramping, and severe dehydration, which ultimately leads to the death of those who cannot keep properly hydrated as their immune system fights the disease. Unfortunately, outbreaks are still occurring today, with an estimated 3 to 5 million cases and 120,000 deaths reported each year. The largest and most recent cholera outbreak began in Haiti in 2010. It has already claimed over 7,000 lives and has yet to be eradicated. Number 5, Smallpox. Dating back to the 1500s, the smallpox epidemic, stemming from the variola virus, has ravaged entire populations. It caused the death of nearly 90 million Native Americans when the Europeans brought it over to the Americas. Symptoms include body aches, high fevers, and a serious rash that results from fluid-filled bumps that leave extensive scarring on the skin. The disease killed an estimated 400,000 Europeans per year at the end of the 18th century, even though a vaccine was created in 1796. In spite of the vaccine, breakouts of this disease persist, most recently in the late 1960s, when 2 million people died in countries all over the globe. Number 4, Yellow Fever. This disease is related to malaria in that it spreads from person to person through infected mosquitoes. Responsible for taking millions of lives and wiping out entire colonies and villages during the time of Napoleon's reign, yellow fever still persists in areas of Africa and South America. While some infections are less severe than others, it is a life-threatening disease that can cause severe internal bleeding and liver failure, which is marked by the yellowing of the skin, prompting this disease's name. The most famous yellow fever epidemic occurred in 1793 in the United States in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, when over 4,000 people died in a span of only 4 months. Today, the disease still exists, and there are an estimated 200,000 cases of yellow fever, causing 30,000 deaths worldwide each year. Number 3, the Black Death. Also known as the bubonic plague, the Black Death is considered to be the first true pandemic on Earth, and it cut populations in half throughout parts of the world like Asia and Europe in the 14th century. Symptoms of Black Death include swollen lymph glands, fever, cough, bloody sputum and difficulty breathing. The underlying cause or epidemic strain is still being debated today, but thanks to developments in medicine, any resurfacing cases can be easily treated in early stages, so the immense loss in population as seen 6 centuries ago is unlikely. Number 2, the Great Influenza Epidemic. There are many names for this one, including the Spanish flu and the flu of 1918, but no matter which one you use, it is widely known as one of the most deadly outbreaks in history. Though it only survived for a year, this strain of virus was responsible for the deaths of 50 to 100 million people, as it was able to quickly spread from country to country as troops and soldiers returned home from World War I from all around the globe. Symptoms were common to those in today's influenza virus, but excessive fluid buildup in the lungs as a result of the complications from the flu is what ultimately caused the death of millions. Number 1, tuberculosis. Strains of this disease have been traced back to the DNA of ancient Egyptian mummies, revealing that this epidemic has been wreaking havoc on humanity for thousands of years. Caused by a bacteria that spreads through the air, this disease attacks the lungs and causes internal weakness, chest pains, night sweats, and terrible fits of coughing. In the 19th century, tuberculosis killed an estimated 1/4 of the adult population of Europe, and by 1918 1 in 6 deaths in France were still caused by TB. Today, the disease is still around, affecting nearly 8 million people a year and leading to the death of about 2 million of those infected. It's hard to imagine, in this day of super antibiotics and advanced medicine, but there was a time in history when a single disease could cause the deaths of thousands of people virtually overnight. If you ask me which one obsessed me the most, I would say AIDS, and how about you? Let us know in the comment below. Also check out one of these other videos and subscribe to World Top Record channel. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next videos.